Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for April 17th, 2018. Madam Clerk.
Item 1 on the closed session agenda, pursuant to Government Code Section 94956.9B1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund and Trevor Whitkey v. County of Calaveras et al., Calaveras Superior Court Case Number 18CV43130.
Do we have any public comment on this item and this item only?
Yes, I don't know much about this case, but having met Trevor Whitkey, I can tell you that he seems to be an interesting fella. You know, not physically attractive, but he has something to say, and perhaps he has something to say in court. Now, I want to remind Trevor that he might be placing the blame in the wrong place. It's where he's looking, he's probably not going to find anything. Where he may find anything is finding the hub in this whole situation, which is County Council's office. County Council has not been a big fan of marijuana in our county, and I think that he probably should look there. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, we will retire to closed session. We'll be back at 10 o'clock. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for April 17th, 2018. Will you please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can you please report out from closed session for us?
Report of closed session, item 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 94956.9B1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund and Trevor Whitkey v. County of Calaveras et al., Calaveras Superior Court Case Number 18CV43130. There was no reportable action taken.
Thank you. Moving on. Announcements.
Announcements. This is a time for board members and county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public.
Mr. Maurer.
Good morning, Peter Maurer, Planning Director. I have two announcements. First of all, there will be an upcoming community workshop in Murphy's on next Wednesday, the 25th, at the old schoolhouse, beginning at 5 o'clock. It is for public input on the Murphy's Highway 4 Complete Streets project, a project that is funded through a grant by Caltrans. We're working with COG to look at the Highway 4 corridor to make it more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, to provide safe routes to school, and look at improvements along that corridor through Murphy's. Secondly, any questions on that?
Does it have the address? Here. Peter, does it have the address of the school?
It is
65 Jones. Okay,
yes,
just wanted to be sure it's on there.
The old schoolhouse there. Secondly, someone sort of tried to steal my thunder the other day. I have received the admin draft EIR. We are reviewing it right now. I've completed my review. Outside counsel is continuing to review it. I hope to have final comments back within the next few days and hope to have an EIR out on the street for public comment by the end of the month. I'm saying hoping because, again, I'm sort of waiting to hear back from our outside counsel. I'm confident that we'll have something, but I can't promise it just because I don't know what their comments will be. So I just want to let you know that that is forthcoming. I know it's an important step in the process of the general plan adoption, which you've declared as the #1 priority for the county. And I'm very happy to have that step almost done. We're looking at a 60-day public comment period, so then we can continue on with the process after that. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
No, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mauer, thank you. For the benefit of the folks out in our TV audience, and could you explain the acronym EIR for?
Environmental Impact Report. It is the document that we must prepare to analyze the potential impacts for the upcoming general plan update, looking at potential impacts, mitigation measures. That would be available for public comment for 60 days. Then we will need to respond to those comments, prepare the final EIR, and then begin adoption hearings. Thank you.
Any other board questions? Thank you. Is there any board announcements?
There is, Mr. Chair. With the chair's permission, I asked a young man to come up and say hi to our Board of Supervisors, and I'm going to have Mr. Matt Utterback come up. I met Matt on Thursday evening at a Lions Club presentation, and I was so impressed with his project, what he's doing, that I invited him and his family to come here and give us a 2 to 3 minute dissertation of what he's doing and how he's doing it. Matt, welcome to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. I came here to talk about my trip to Washington, D.C. and New York City with my class. And I have been going around asking businesses, business owners and people like that to help with the funds because the trip is $2,900. And I've been, as I said, I've been going around asking people for that, and I've been doing jobs on the weekends and things like that. And I've been recycling with my family, and yeah, I'm excited to go see the whole thing. There's certain places in New York and Washington, D.C. we're going to be go to. As soon as we get off the plane, we're going to be on our feet the whole time, basically. We're going to be seeing the Smithsonian Museum, the Statue of Liberty, things like that. And we get off the plane, we go to Washington, D.C. first, and then we go see everything, and then we get on a plane again, we go to New York, we see everything, and then we come home. And that's the whole trip. And that's about all I can say about it, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, quick question, Chair. Is this the first time you've been on a plane?
Yes.
First time been out of California?
Yes.
It's an exciting trip. Ladies and gentlemen, his entire class is involved in this. And what school do you go to?
I go to Avery Middle School.
Avery Middle School. And I'm glad to see that we've got that participation, especially for my youth. Thank you, family, for bringing them by. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Any other board comment, announcements? Any other staff announcements? If not, we'll move on to public comment. Madam Clerk.
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just live for days like today. You know, I try not to pay attention to the politics in the county. I'm not registered to vote here, but I find that the county's well-being affects my well-being, and I decided that there are going to be some changes, and I'm going to go out there and make those changes. For one thing, Gary, remember how I promised you that I'd never talk behind your back? Well, I'm not going to today. I have some issues with your performance. And that is going to lead me to go door to door in your district collecting signatures to have you recalled. You have been not doing a good job lately. Once the marijuana issue that you let drag on too long was decided, the county came to a complete standstill. It has no direction. It's not moving forward. So I don't care if you like me or not, to tell you the truth. I don't care if anybody likes me or not. There's right and wrong, and you're doing wrong. As Malcolm X said, it doesn't matter who you are. If you do wrong, you're doing wrong. Jack, they are not going to be collecting enough signatures for your recall. I talked to him on Thursday up in West Point at the community center, but I decided that perhaps you're a good fit for District 2. Michael, doing a good job. You were left with a lot of issues that had compiled over the years, a lot of issues that the previous supervisor did not take care of, failing roads, failing bridges. It was bound to go wrong. So you're doing a good job. Keep it up. Keep up talking to your constituents, and hopefully you will be the supervisor that remains in office. Dennis is doing a fantastic job as well. He's out there. He's at these meetings. He's making changes. Clyde, you're doing a fantastic job. I know we share some similar concerns, and I hope this doesn't disappoint you. Gary has been a good friend of yours, and you've been an excellent friend to Gary, but he is not living up to the expectations. There's always time to change this, Gary. There's always time to do those performance evaluations on county staff. There's always time to do away with some departments that we don't need anymore. But you're not moving in that direction, so until you move in that direction, you're off the good list. And that smile is very nice, but I'm sorry. It's just the way things have to be. I do not want county counsel's office anymore in this county. It's not necessary. They cause too much drama, and it's too expensive. Good day.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I've heard a really nasty rumor, and it is affecting me. And because I don't believe anything anybody says, I'm not going to believe it till it's in writing, but I thought I'd run it by you folks. I heard that the Board of Supervisors is no longer going to be entertaining presentations from their advisory committees, their advisory boards, and their councils. I was under the impression that you're only going to receive a written report from the 200 volunteers that step up every year and volunteer to be on these boards. I don't think that was a decision you all made because it wasn't done in this forum. And you wouldn't violate the Brown Act and make that decision out there somewhere without us knowing about it. So I just wonder where this short-sighted, maybe self-serving decision came from. If you don't want to hear from the advisory committees, you don't want to see the advisory committees, you don't want to recognize the work they do, you don't want to thank them, you're doing a great disservice to all the volunteers that step forward. And I would just like to say, how are we going to encourage people to participate as volunteers on these committees and commissions if they don't even get the recognition that they feel they deserve? It does not allow the committees to talk about the work they do. It doesn't allow them the time to advertise, to recruit new members, which is done in many ways besides a little thing in the newspaper. It's done on TV. It's done in this room. And I just would like to tell you how discouraged I was when I heard that. And if it's not true, shut my mouth. If it is true, I'll be blabbing a whole lot more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. First time here, won't be last. My name is Sean Pagano. I'm actually the union organizer for the IHSS workers in Calaveras County. We're SEIU 2015, which is Service Employees International Union. I'm here to announce that we are getting ready and preparing to get ready to go and negotiate a long overdue contract. So we will be present in your county and we won't be going anywhere. This is going to be one of my top priorities, is making sure that the in-home support service workers of this county get the deserve that they get, dignity, respect, and the wages that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy today, and I want to express my gratitude because when I came before this board in December, I was in turmoil with my insurance. I want to give a big thanks to Kristen Brinks, to Del D. Kendrick, and Tracy Barton. They worked really hard because I am in a really gray area with everything, and I got a call April 11th that I am fully covered with medical. So with that, I totally want to express my gratitude coming to the public comment and speaking, and you guys hearing me out, and your guys' county workers grabbing me afterwards and helping me, and Bonnie, thank you. I'm also here with SEIU, and some of the duties that I do for my son are brush his teeth, shower him, I dress him fully. He wears braces, which are AFOs for his feet and his gait, tie his shoes. I toilet him, I shave him. He's going into puberty. I can't leave him alone in the shower because he turns it hot to cold, which isn't okay. A new condition that we're having is seizures. We don't know what's causing them. It's very new to us and scary. So the 24-hour watching him and what he's doing and where he's at, whether he's at school or in the pool or with friends, the danger has increased. JJ is a very happy kid. He is a bright light, and he is my heart running around. And I don't have a choice. I can't keep a job longer than 3 years before I'm replaced because nobody has the circumstances that I have. It's, I want to say, a harsh reality because I'm an educated woman and I want to go and find a job and a purpose. But the best hat that I can wear is at home and be JJ's provider and caregiver because no one could do the job that I can do. So we're here today, and I really appreciate the board hearing my needs and addressing the concerns and the solutions. Like, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Stacy Pearson, and I am with IHSS. I am also a daughter of Carol, who is a recipient of IHSS. I have been doing this for almost 20 years with this IHSS supportive services. And unfortunately, I've seen some good and bad changes with this system. I know that I've lived in other counties where it's not been like this, and I know that there's changes within the state that have brought me to this today. I do care for another gentleman who can only move his eyeballs and a couple of his fingers that is in a wheelchair. He's 34 years old. And I'm the first person that was ever able to care for him outside of his mother, who is now, for the first time in his life, been able to step out of the home, go grocery shopping freely, actually go and visit her grandchildren overnight somewhere. I have been in a position with a crossover here. I'm with my union, and I have IHSS to deal with on the other side. We have merged over into a system where it is computer operated, and unfortunately, the two first, I've received some violations. The first two violations were out of my control. The IHSS supervisor sent me out on jobs, which brought me over in hours, which gave me my first two violations. I discussed it with my union. We went over paperwork. We diligently sent in everything, submitted everything according to and in a timely manner. It wasn't resolved, I guess, unless you ask for some type of paperwork back from my supervisor, not knowing that until this day, which this has been over a year's course time. I received on Saturday a third violation with the services that is now telling me, because the first two violations were not properly taken care of by the IHS's supervisor, that I've gotten a third violation, which is by one error of an hour mistake on a travel pay, which in 15 years I never even got travel pay, so I am blessed to receive it at this time. But there was a computer glitch. I am now losing my job for 90 days. My mom and I reside together, which means we will now have no place to live. And I think that this is just absolutely wrong. I will be here in full force now that I am losing my position. We're going to go and do whatever we can to try and save it. However, it's something that's already put in place, and there's no way of getting out of it until it is resolved. Until then, I don't get paid to take care of either one of these families. And again, my income attributes to my mom's well-being.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Madam Clerk, moving to regular agenda.
Item 2 is from the Planning Department to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution upholding the Planning Commission's denial of the appeal of the Planning Director's denial of commercial medical cannabis registration 2016-929 for Daniel Giebelwitz on APN 016-025-105.
Good morning, Peter Maurer, Planning Department. We received a request to withdraw this appeal yesterday. I forwarded that to you and the CAO and the board clerk yesterday, so that this appeal has been withdrawn.
The appeal has been withdrawn.
Yes.
Okay. We will not be hearing that matter today. It's been withdrawn. So I would like to take a 5-minute break. Can we take a 5-minute break? Before we move to the next item, it's already 20 after 10, so. All right, we're back in session. Madam Clerk, item number 3.
Item number 3 is from the Administrative Office to receive an update from the County Administrator on a contract with Government Financial Strategies to assist in the placement of a measure on the ballot to increase the transient occupancy tax, TOT, in Calaveras County, per the recommendation of the TOT Ad Hoc Committee. Approve a budget transfer in the amount of $23,500. This requires a 4/5 affirmative vote of the board.
Mr. Lutz.
All right. Yes, this, again, this item is coming to the board. Although the actual contract is within the purchasing agent's signing authority, I felt, given that this was coming through the ad hoc committee, it was important to bring back to the board for discussion, and also requesting a budget transfer of $23,500 to actually fund the contract, which does require a 4/5 vote from the board. So a little bit of history. The board formed the ad hoc committee December 12th of 2017. The goal is to look at the feasibility really of putting a measure on the ballot for a transient occupancy tax or hotel bed tax. You know, a little more. It's everyone says we hate the name transient occupancy tax. It doesn't always connotate what it means, but it is normally looked at as the hotel tax. So we have a very good group of individuals that are on the ad hoc committee, representatives from the Calaveras Visitors Bureau, the Calaveras Chamber, Sheriff's Department, Public Works, Economic Development. We also have the Treasurer Tax Collector on the committee, as well as public if they're interested. We now have somebody from the Republicans Committee, the Calaveras Republicans Committee, and the goal being try and make this as inclusive as possible, let the stakeholders come to the table, ask their questions. What was determined fairly early on in the process is that we probably needed to look at some type of a consultant or somebody who can provide support to the county in structuring the measure, looking at the relevant research, really putting together a strong package. Now, the county's been working with GFS, or Government Financial Solutions, since 2005. And within that context, they've worked closely with the county administrator's office, the treasurer tax collector's office, the auditor controller's office, for a number of different projects over the last few years. So during this time, they have helped with development of mitigation agreements. They've conducted financial analysis for us. They've looked at revenue sharing agreements, options on pension obligation bonds, helped in the formation of the debt advisory committee for the county, and then also looked at a number of special projects, such as analysis of the tobacco settlement revenues, financings and refinancings, debt administration, which they do for us on a regular basis now for some of the requirements for our bonds and certificates of participation. Most importantly, and I think related to this, is that they were the key organization that worked with us on Measure J to fund the jail bonds that was ultimately successful. Now, it's important to note, I think, that they're looking at what they would do for us, what the scope would be to provide those services, is that they would really be serving as a key advisor to the committee in terms of the scope of work that we negotiated with them. They would be assisting with developing parameters for our proposed tax measure. They would be doing research on economic indicators. They would be doing financial modeling of some of the impacts. One of the questions that we have is a 10% versus a 12%, and the likelihood that either of those rates would pass. So one of the things that we're looking at is how to do the outreach, and they're working to develop a marketing and feasibility study that would go out to actually do polling and identify what would be most likely to appeal to the voters, what the voters would support. They obviously would be working closely with administration, the auditor, county counsel's office, in making sure that whatever we crafted was, conformed with with laws and how we would want to craft the measure. They also would be developing and running our campaign for community outreach on this measure, including some town hall meetings, some marketing efforts. At last week's meeting, we talked a lot about the initial marketing effort, which would be targeting actually the Calaveras County Fair that's coming up on May 17th. That being a good opportunity where we have a lot of county residents coming together, as well as outside people, to do some initial marketing and polling. And then they would, of course, assist with bringing presentations forward, provide those presentations to the board overall and the ad hoc committee on an ongoing basis. I think, from my perspective, they've been a very good partner and advisor to the county over the years, although they really tout themselves as, again, they're a consultant and an advisor. And not necessarily branding themselves as a marketing or as a campaign manager per se. They provide the assistance and guidance. what they've seen is 90% of their clients' bond and tax measures have passed that they've worked with over the last, they were formed in 1988.
90%?
90%. They were founded in 1988.
What role did they play in those campaigns? I'm sorry. Tim, what role did they play in those campaigns?
This type of a role. What they tout themselves on is trying to help make provide as comprehensive of answers to the stakeholders as possible in making good decisions.
How many campaigns were 90%?
So they've provided since 1988 advisory services in connection with over 100 bond and tax measures for local government agencies in California.
Any of them specifically TOT?
Specific TOT, I don't have a breakdown of that. Certainly I can come back and ask that. I mean, again, when you look at TOT versus, I know that they've done a number of local, just general sales tax measures. I mean, TOT versus sales tax measures are, for the most part, tax measures. It's, you know, part of it's about how you're marketing, providing the education and information. Arguably, sales tax measures are much harder to pass than a TOT, just by nature of who's paying. You know, it's hard to get residents to say, yes, I want to tax myself. It's a little easier when it's taxing people who are coming into the community and providing more of a fair share of the services.
I'll let you do your presentation. I'm sorry for
No,
interrupting.
that was fine.
Good question.
Yeah, it is.
Very good question.
So again, what we're asking today is that the board, you know, adopt the recommendation of the ad hoc committee and allow the purchasing agent to proceed with doing a contract to assist on this measure, and then approve the budget transfer. And obviously, I'd be happy to entertain questions or do additional research if the board would like to have that.
Dennis?
Thank you. The expectation is that they would be able to complete this by what, June? End of June?
That is part of the discussion. What we talked about last week is they actually rolled out, based on historical information, the likely voter turnout for this election plus the next 2 years in elections, with the prospect of what is the right timing. Is it better to do it in November? Right now, the conventional wisdom is yes, we want to pursue a measure in November. But that's part of what they're providing recommendations to, and what we've decided is doing polling first would be important in helping to make the determination of when we want to place it.
Okay.
I want to hear from the ad hoc committee if they support this.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Strongly support this. We had the opportunity, in fact, Supervisor Garamendi and I accompanied CAO Lutz in Sacramento at the CSAC to meet originally with the folks, this consulting firm. And there was some different ideas at that time, but after meeting and seeing our presentation in the ad hoc committees for the tot tax, if you will, or hotel tax they're talking about changing it to, I'm pretty convinced that this is the game plan that we need to do to be successful. As you probably well know, it's been tried in the past, but I see the game plan laid out and the cooperation with the committees and the members on the ad hoc committee, and I think with the proper education and the proper procedures, this is a very viable thing that would benefit the county. We need to go to the professionals for this, and these people are the professionals. And I would greatly endorse this project.
Okay. Supervisor Clapp, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's educational. It's up to everyone on the board here to, you know, get their district on board and just educate. I think because when I talk to people and they find out what it's about, they can't believe they actually voted against it the last time. So I think it's up to us to educate the population.
Supervisor Garamendi, your light's on?
Yeah, I got a ton of questions.
That's all right.
That's fine.
First, and these are questions, this does not mean I am opposed to this. I supported TOT. These are just questions I think we need to ask. I'd like to start by, first off, I have, and I expressed these to county council, and she took care of most of my fears about this, but I have grave concerns about using taxpayer money for a campaign, a political campaign. Doesn't seem right, but apparently it's legal. So I was hoping the council could explain that to the board so we know exactly what lane we're in as far as using taxpayer money for political purposes.
Certainly. Government agencies certainly cannot use public funds for campaign purposes. The government code lays out the general rule that the county cannot use public funds to support or oppose the approval or rejection of a ballot measure or the election or defeat of candidates by voters. There is an exception to that rule, and that is set out in Government Code Section 54964C, and that basically allows for local jurisdictions to use public funds for informational purposes. It specifically says that the section does not prohibit the expenditure of local agency funds to provide information to the public about the possible effects of a ballot measure on the activities, operations, or policies of the local agency if both of the following conditions are met. One, that the informational activities are not otherwise prohibited by the Constitution or other laws of the state, and that the information provided constitutes an accurate, fair, and impartial presentation of relevant facts to aid the voters in reaching an informed judgment regarding the ballot measure. So there's a difference between getting information out there that is factual and accurate about the measure, similar to what Supervisor Clapp was indicating about informing the voters of this is what the TOT tax does, this is the percentage that we're at, this is what is being proposed, this is what the increased tax would be used for, things of that nature. It cannot be used for partisan campaigning, such as the county supports measure, yeah, whatever, vote yes. Things of that nature where it's a partisan campaign effort. There is case law that discusses things that we cannot use public funds for, such as bumper stickers, flyers that, or radio spots that are partisan in nature. There is case law that kind of gives some direction of what is allowed and what is not allowed, but certainly informational purposes that are general and not general, that are specific, but that are accurate, fair, and impartial, public funds can be used to support that. One other thing that case law has indicated is that the court has found that a ballot measure does not become an official measure triggering any prohibition on the use of public funds to advocate a single viewpoint until the measure begins circulating among the voters for potential qualification. So as far as things on the front end, such as staff time to look at what would be proposed, what does the county want to propose, things of that nature are staff time on the front end. That is not something that would be prohibited under this government code section. Does that clarify and
A little bit. I mean, it seems like the lane that we're driving down is legal. Whether it makes us comfortable, I don't know, but certainly it isn't legal. I am concerned about the rule about collecting signatures for an initiative that will be put on the ballot by the Board of Supervisors. Obviously, we're not going to collect signatures. We'll just put it on. So how would that apply to our work?
it would really be about when it was going to be placed on the ballot. So I would really look at it as the things such as working with this consultant, doing, it's my understanding that they are going to be assisting and getting information out there. Those are certainly well within the bounds of information
dissemination.
Okay.
If there is anything that, I know that my office will be working with the consultant, with administration. If there's anything that appears questionable, we would certainly be keeping our eye on it, because use of public funds is a very important topic that we are actively reviewing.
And if I could add on to that too, that was a fairly lengthy discussion on Thursday's ad hoc committee meeting for just that topic of what is and is not within the feasible realm of campaigning, so to speak, or promoting a measure. And I think, per what council's indicated, the consultant has a very good grasp on what that line is and wants to make sure that we stay on the right side of that line.
My next question is, we're being asked to provide $23,000 to pay a consultant for a scope of work that's not included in our packet. The consultant is not here either to tell us about their qualifications or how they're going to run this. So I feel like we're giving $23,000 on a, trust me, we got a plan, and I'm not comfortable with that. So I'd like to know, is there a scope of work? Are we going to be provided with it, and why are we not provided with it before we're asked to give money?
And I apologize again, because this contract is within the CAO's normal purchasing authority as purchasing agent. I hadn't provided the scope of work. There is absolutely a scope of work, and I'd be more than happy to provide the scope of work. It's for us, it was more trying to make sure that we had the report on what they're doing. What I outlined to you was more or less what we talked about for the scope of work, is that preparing agendas, meeting materials, assisting developing any of the marketing materials or develop them themselves, prepare, deliver presentations to all the various stakeholder groups. And then they would also be providing the parameters for what the tax measure would be, developing and doing modeling and research based on when the best time to bring the measure would be, guidance on how that marketing campaign should look like, assisting to get all of the community outreach and town hall meetings coordinated together and actually facilitating those discussions. And then they would be really then driving the organization of this campaign forward to make sure that it is that we're on track, we're setting deliverables and timelines, target dates to know we have to have certain things completed and turned in by this point to make sure that it continues to qualify.
I would certainly like to hear from our consultant on that, and I don't think this is a courtesy issue. I think this is important to, the board's putting something on the ballot, and I think we need to hear about it. We're asking to fund this out of the general fund. Under Measure J, how are they paid, and what work did they exactly perform?
I'd have to go back.
Since that's their claim to success,
I'd have to go back and research how
it
was, how Measure J was funded and paid for. I apologize, I just don't have that.
I would like to know that. If that's their primary qualifications for elections in Calaveras County, I'd like to know where they're paid and what their scope of work was. Now, we're offering $23,000. Is that through the campaign? Is that just to get started? What is their total costs of this effort?
They pride themselves on being pretty thorough. We talked through what we expected this campaign to entail. That was their fully loaded cost for this entire campaign.
$23,000.
Yes.
And this is probably a broader question for the ad hoc committee, but there's going to be other costs associated with this campaign. Our side of it is putting up $23,000. What are the other partners putting into the campaign budget?
At this point, we haven't asked the other partners to do that, mainly because this is a county initiative that we'd taken up. I think certainly one of the advantages to having the partners that we have, such as the Visitors Bureau, such as the Chamber, some have a direct benefit, some have no direct benefit at all, but I think we're all looking for leveraging each of their strengths, whether it be outreach, whether it be connections. There's that, the synergy that you get with having the right people at the table who are, making those connections.
And how many times has this ad hoc committee met?
I think now we're at 3 times that they've met.
3 times?
Yes.
And we haven't decided whether we're going for 10 or 12%?
I think there's a risk on either side. On one side, we clearly do not go for these measures very often. So the idea is go for what is basically what the market is right now. And right now, the market on average is between 10 and 12%. I'm in talking to some of the neighboring counties and cities. I know Angels Camp is taking up tonight the idea of raising theirs to 12%. Tuolumne is considering also raising theirs to 12%. Mariposa's looking at 14%. There's a lot of discussion amongst the neighboring counties throughout the area on where their rates are. That obviously plays a little bit of the discussion, but ultimately it's what is an ask that the voters feel comfortable with, and that's what we're trying to really pin down, and that's where polling is going to be important.
In your document, you say the successful measurement would generate roughly $450,000 to $700,000 to the general fund on an annual basis. Is that add, or is that in addition to what we're currently earning?
That's an
or
addition.
Is that a total?
That is in addition to what we're already earning.
Okay. I support this. I think this is a good idea. I would like to have some analysis. We actually do run these campaigns fairly regularly. We've lost the last 2 of them. I would hope that we'd have some analysis on what we did right and what we did wrong and how we're going to succeed this time. I would like to meet the consultants and have them come and make their pitch about how we're going to do this, including the whole campaign. I mean, we're going to have to, as a board, get behind and be really working to try to get this thing passed. And I would like to have some confidence before we use taxpayer dollars to move forward, and just at a minimum see what the work plan is, the contract, before I vote on this.
I'd be happy to have the group come in May to provide a presentation to the board on kind of the overview of that campaign, similar to what they did to the ad hoc group, although hopefully a little shorter. But really outlining what that strategy is. And you are right, we've already gotten from the elections department a summary of all the data from the last 2 campaigns, and one of the things that they're looking at and starting to dig into is what exactly, what were the good points, what were the bad points, and how do we do this more successfully?
Because when we met with them down in Sacramento, I mean, they're clearly very good at financial advising, writing bonds, doing this strategy piece, but they didn't strike me as having a lot of experience in TOT campaign organization. So I would like to have a little bit more backbone on how this is actually, I don't question they're professional, but I had the impression this is a field they're trying to branch into. Obviously, the data you've got is different, so if we could bring that forward, I'd like to see it. And again, I'm not opposed to this. I just don't know if it's cooked. Ready.
Supervisor Oliveira, your light's on.
I'm going to withdraw my comment.
Supervisor Clapp.
I would like to see maybe what Jack was talking. Let's kick this back just a little ways so we can have those people present their position on what they're going to do for us. So we're going for the November election, so we have another 2 to 3 weeks. So let's put this on the next agenda that when we can get here and have those people here so they can answer those questions that Jack just raised.
Can I add one piece to that? My only concern is we are talking about probably at the earliest May 8th, assuming they are available. My concern is our deadline is July 24th, I believe, to actually get language to the board to adopt it, to get this on the November, if we were to go for the November ballot. If we're looking at doing polling, every minute essentially is critical. Now, I guess an alternative, we obviously have a cancellation clause within the contract. If the board decides that, hey, we don't like what direction they're going, we say, you know, thank you, but we don't want you to provide any more work or services. It is based on performance, not a lump sum. So they will continue to submit deliverables through the course of that contract, as opposed to just paying them a lump sum to do the contract.
Mr. Chair, I just
Supervisor
got a
Oliver.
comment. Yeah, I feel that I've got a little hand up in this issue. After attending the meeting with CIO Lutz, their presentation was very fulfilling, provided a lot of answers. Supervisor Garamendi, I agree with you. We're not going to be buying a pig in a poke. We want to see what we're going to spend money on. I think a presentation would benefit the board education on this, but I also agree with CIO Lutz. We are up against a deadline to make a successful campaign for something that's very beneficial for this county, that has not been addressed for a long time, that other counties have taken a look at. Look at Angels Camp right now. Tonight they're going to be meeting to discuss a raise from 10% to 12%, and we are currently at 6%. Our surrounding counties, our surrounding municipalities, they are at 10 to 12. Even if you go to the metropolitan areas, you're looking at 18 to 20%. So it's not something that's new to the public, but we are, number one, under a time constraint, and number two, want to make sure we spend our dollars where they're going to be most benefit. And that, I agree with Supervisor Garamendi, Supervisor Clapp I agree with, but I also agree with Supervisor Lutz that we get forward on this thing, have the presentation, and move. Thank you.
Supervisor Mills.
Yes, thank you. I ultimately would like to see this adopted today with the concept that they do come back in May with a presentation, and we do have a cancellation clause in there, so we have some room, but it is a time crunch, and I say that because of the frog jump, that you're not going to give them enough time to ramp up if we do something in mid-May. It just isn't going to work. So I would like to simply say I support it. I would move forward with it. If we find that we're having issues with how it's being laid out or being presented, or that their deliverables aren't there, then we can have that conversation, at a later point. But let's get moving on it now while we've got the time. If we're saying we're not going to be in the November ballot, that's a whole different game. But to try to get this done and prepared to present in July, 90 days is not a lot of time. So I would just assume we move forward now if the board would agree. And then have the presentation sometime in May.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Just one more quick question. Did we do an RFP on this?
We did not. And there's not a requirement that we have to do an RFP. The reason we didn't was specifically because of their past relationship and history with us. We have an ongoing contract with them to provide general financial recommendations and analysis if we ask for it. In the interest of speed, essentially, is why we decided to go with somebody who we have an existing relationship with that has been successful for us.
Well, I mean, I hate only looking at a single vendor in general. I understand it's speed, but we have put this, ad hoc was formed in December. So I also dislike getting jammed at the end. Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions myself, and Supervisor Garamendi kind of touched on some of the ones that I had. First off, from some of the comments that you made in your presentation, is there an actual contract that has been written up, and has county council vetted that contract? Because I have a problem here being asked to vote for something as a contractor, not even have a contract in front of me to see what it says. So do we have a contract that's written up? Do we have a scope of work? Has the county council vetted that contract?
Yes, we have a scope of work. It's already gone through county council. It has not been signed pending this discussion today.
A scope of work as an actual contract?
Well, the scope of work and the contract itself.
Okay, so does the contract cover insurance clause in it?
Of course.
Okay, so the insurance clause is a typical, since they're going to be using their vehicles, you say they're going to be coming to our ad hoc committee. They're going to be using their vehicles to transport themselves or their contingency here for these meetings. So we have the usual 2 million and 1 million car coverage
Our
and workers' comp. And
standard
the whole thing.
coverages.
And the contract on their end has not been signed yet?
That's correct. Well, let me rephrase. They're fine with the scope of work, and we might well have their signature. It has not been signed by my office yet, by myself, to actually execute the contract.
And Megan, your office has viewed it and signed off on it, the contract?
It's my understanding that the contract was routed through my office in my absence.
And the scope of work was provided through the ad hoc committee?
The scope of work was, what we did is laid out what we wanted a consultant to do. Then the scope of work was drafted through my office and with working with GFS to say, this is all the areas that we want you to touch on, where we want you to bring your expertise. And so it was crafted between GFS and my office.
And the out clause that you referred to is a standard out clause where they have 30 days. Each side has 30 days of given notice.
Yes, the difference obviously would be, because this is a services-based thing, at some point there might be a 30-day clause, but if we said, we don't do the next project, they would stop for that next phase. And obviously if they submitted, we did it, even though we told them, no, we don't want you to do that, we would have grounds for saying it's not a valid cost. But again, knowing the relationship and that GFS is an exceptionally well-structured and ethical company, if we told them stop, they would stop.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to public comments at this time. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Yes, my name is Bruce Judici. I'm in District 5 Rancho. My concern is many. I agree with the TOT. I think the county definitely needs revenue. But I'm wondering, why this time crunch? I mean, the Board of Supervisors took away the cannabis tax in January. You guys have been meeting since December. And here we are in April. And now this sole source contract is being pushed on the board without any alternative. What is the threshold for a sole source contract? I'm talking out of ignorance, but is there a threshold for sole source contracting? And do we have to go out to bid? It sounds like this person was chosen because they happened to have a contract with us in the past, and we're just going to go with those folks. And regardless of expertise, regardless of you guys seeing any sort of proposal, why 23,000? Why not 20,000? Why not 25? Why not 50? I mean, you have no basis for making a decision to pull this money out of the general fund. And also, why not do this in-house? I mean, it's an educational campaign. Can't supervisors go out and discuss with their constituents and do it on a cost-free basis? Isn't that what supervisors do? I mean, don't you guys go out and talk with your constituents and talk about how to raise funds in a way that is reasonable and responsible? And also, if the standard is around 10 or 12%, what sort of polling is going to give us any sort of different number? I mean, when you ask people on a phone or go door to door and ask somebody, well, 10%, 12%, I mean, what sort of basis is somebody supposed to answer that question? I mean, they don't know. And a lot of people would say, oh, great, somebody else is paying the tax, great. But I don't know what sort of polling or what sort of expertise a consultant is going to provide that is more than what you know from your own constituency, and then also what staff can do. So I would, It would be great to have a TOT increase. Somebody else pays our bills. That's wonderful. They come in here. They use our roads. They use our parks and that sort of thing. And so it's reasonable and responsible for them to pay some of the bills. But I just don't see why the general fund should be hit with $23,000 when it's something that you all can do when you're going out and pushing for it in November. Thanks.
I just had a quick question about the ad hoc committee. Where did this committee come from? Who's on it? I mean, where did we draw it from? Out of planning department, or where did they come from, and how long have they been in existence?
Any other public comments? Not, I'll close public comments. Do you want to answer a couple of the questions?
Yeah, the committee was formed in December 2017, and the two committee members, Supervisor Olvera and Supervisor Clapp, and then again, broader, who, you know, those community stakeholders who were either invited or have come to the table because they wanted to be involved and in the know on the process. And then I don't know for the first comments on why the time crunch. I mean, I think again the time crunch now is the need to get good information on, do we want this on the November ballot or not. I agree. Obviously, we could have gone to an RFP, but at the end of the day, an RFP process is going to, for something like this, is going to be a pretty subjective process based on what, you know, credibility they might be able to bring. A campaign like this is tough because you're trying to guess, are they going to be able to deliver? Do they know this community and some of the historical challenges to try and pass any type of a tax measure? The fact that we have had now a 13-year relationship with GFS, I definitely feel weighed heavily on the confidence in them providing a good product, being very thorough, being dedicated to wanting to see that their goal is not just to take money. Their goal is they want to see something successful if they're putting their name behind it. Whereas a campaign firm, if you do an RFP, it's hard to say who you're going to get. Certainly ones that do a lot of campaigns, but what is their success rate? How much will it take them to then start to understand our community? And those were really the factors where my recommendation to the ad hoc committee was, we have an existing relationship. You know, from my perspective, they haven't let us down yet, and I felt that they were a good choice.
Any other board comments? We're looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the transfer with the understanding that GFS will be back before this board in May for a full presentation to the full board rather than just to the ad hoc committee. And should the board decide at any time that that's insufficient, that we would then make the decision to terminate.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Before we go into the vote here, a couple of comments. Is there a possibility, and I don't think Supervisor Clapp, were you at the last meeting that they
No, I
made this
wasn't.
presentation to? I would request that the possibility is that they could meet again with the entire ad hoc committee between now and May 8th, when you plan to bring them before this board. And hopefully it would be before the 24th, our next meeting, and the ad hoc committee could report out to us some of the questions and concerns that we've raised here at this board, and come forward with their answers to any of those questions and concerns that we have, and present it on the 24th to us. And then again, we will have a presentation from them on the 8th, and we could maybe make a decision on the 24th or whatever, go forward again. But again, to clear up some of the concerns between now and May 8th, I would feel more comfortable doing that if we can do that. If the board is open to that and you want to make that part of your motion.
I would amend the motion to include that.
Further discussion, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
Supervisor Oliver.
I understand the need to have the board hear this presentation, but I want to go back to the timeline and the opportunity to educate the folks. Our county fair is occurring in May. They have, in their scope of work, determined that we have, through the ad hoc committee, an opportunity here to at least start this process where we have the most effective means to do so, and that is at the county fair. I would ask that the board members consider that. Our timeline ends in July to make the November ballot on this. So I'm all for having the presentation before the board. I was very fortunate, as I said, that I did hear the presentation, and I'm convinced as a board member and as a member of the ad hoc committee that this is the right move to get this project going. Otherwise, we're going to lose an opportunity that we probably can't get back until next year. But I do have the concerns that is shared by our supervisors that weren't able to attend that meeting and see these folks in action and how they present themselves. It's a real tough position that we're in right now, but we have to make sure we make the right decision on this and don't lose opportunities. I think there are safeguards built into the contract that would prevent spending frivolous money. But then again, to ask someone to come before the board and make a presentation on May 8th to an event that's going to happen the next week where we have that opportunity, that's really putting a crunch on a lot of people.
The event's going to happen the next week.
Pardon?
He's talking about frog jump.
Frog jump.
But that's the 17th of May, not the next week.
Yeah, but...
So, but I'm not saying he's made a motion to accept here in front of us. I asked him to add on to that motion, and the ad hoc committee meeting again with that corporation and vesting some of our concerns that we've had here and bring it back a report on the 24th to us. I mean, we're not saying we're not going to, the motion is not saying to deny
I understand.
this contract, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that would be great. Then we're going to be reporting back to the board. Is it important enough to maybe even schedule a special board meeting if it's in the parameters of that? Once again, we're going to have that situation where they're going to be presenting to us, and then as a board member, as an ad hoc committee, then presenting to the board again. If we can, I'd like to have them just make the presentation tomorrow, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I would add, because there are so many people involved, we already do have another meeting scheduled for the ad hoc committee on May 3rd. And that's the next one scheduled. I can certainly work with them to see if we want to do it sooner than that, but that would still be before the Board of Supervisors meeting, and it would still give them time to adjust their presentation and try and allay any of those concerns for the May 8th presentation.
Supervisor Garamendi.
I want to be very clear on the record that I support an increase in the TOT tax. I think that that's important, transit occupancy tax, and we need to move forward with it. I am not comfortable jamming through a contract unseen by this board for $23,000 based upon a timeline when the ad hoc committee had since December, and because frog jump is coming. I think good government demands that we take a hard look at this. I'm not really comfortable with the sole sourcing. I could probably get past that, like I've gone past the uncomfortableness of spending taxpayer dollars for a political campaign. But I can't support this until we have some of these questions answered. I don't think that's, we have a responsibility, and I'm not going to gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, to quote Wimpy. So that's where I'm at, and thank you.
Supervisor Clapp, your light's on? Supervisor Mills?
Oh, sorry.
So we've had a discussion, we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. We're all clear on the motion.
No, we're not.
We're not clear on the motion. So Supervisor Mills, will you restate your motion?
So the motion is to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $23,500 with the understanding that the ad hoc committee will come back and do a report before the full board at their next available opportunity. And knowing that we have out clauses within the contract that should it not meet what we're looking for, that we would be able to walk away from it.
And Supervisor Clapp, you have seconded that?
I would still second that.
You second?
Thank you.
All right. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. All right. Madam Clerk.
Supervisor announcements. In compliance with AB 1234, chaptered as Government Code Section 53232.3D, board members shall provide brief reports on meetings they attended at the expense of the local agency at the next regular meeting of the legislative body. This report is required to include meetings attended for which there has been expense reimbursement, such as mileage, meals, lodging, etc., but may also, at the board member's discretion, include any other meeting attended by the supervisor on behalf of the county.
We'll start with Supervisor Clapp.
I had no meetings that you have to pay for, but I enjoyed a great dinner at the library presentation and with Mike and Jack. It was quite pleasant.
Okay, we'll move on to Supervisor Oliveira. Your light's on.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also attended the renaming of the county library with Supervisor Clapp. That was a great presentation. I think we had 100-plus people there. Very honored to Shirley and the Tuttles and the Hubbardys. I did attend the EPOC meeting, the Ibbot's Pass Property Owners Committee. We discussed some of the issues that face our Highway 4 corridor as far as the homeowners. Unfortunately, I had to leave short on that because we had to attend the Murphy's Drive inspection team from FEMA engineers, things of that sort. I want to remind folks that we were looking at that to come to the board for a decision to provide funding to get that access in that Murphy's overcrossing. And 2 days after we were discussing that, we got word from FEMA saying they're accepting the claim. So that provided some funding for that project. I did attend the DSA dinner dance, the fundraiser for the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and I think nearly every supervisor was there and everybody in the county. We had a great time there. They raise a lot of money, and that works great for the Deputy Sheriff's Association. They actually support, with those funds, community projects and sponsorships and things of that sort for the community. They don't spend it on themselves. Monday, I attended the Governor's Task Force meeting on tree mortality in Sacramento. We also attended, that's actually 2 meetings that we attend up there, one at 10 o'clock, which is the county's coordinating meeting, and we go over issues that won't be able to be covered in depth at the Governor's Task Force. And those are probably one of the most important meetings to attend, is that 10 o'clock meeting. I had the privilege of having our emergency services director, Michelle Patterson, attend both meetings, and it was great. I would like to see her, when possible, attend those meetings with me to get most accurate information and her input. That program is going to be kind of in a period of restructure. The governor's office and the agencies are looking at developing a large organization called Forest Health and Management. And I'm sure Supervisor Garamendi has input on this, and Supervisor Mills. And right now, the plan is to include the Forest Health and Management, CAL FIRE, fire prevention, fire wildland defense, tree mortality, under this big umbrella that we can have more close interaction and determine what we have to do to face all these battles, if you will. Of course, that comes with funding, and that's a big story. I mean, who's going to get what? And I'm very cautious of the tree mortality program, especially in my district, and District 3 and District Two, Jack Garamendi's, because that's where we're suffering the most tree mortality. Right now, our problems are being pretty well handled with TSS and the county right-of-ways and taking rid of those dead trees that could actually affect our roadways and things of that sort. But we still need to look at the fire danger because of the trees that have died on private property. And the funding for that, for those homeowners, are very limited. It's increasing through the CDAA funding, but it's still, I mean, when I've got folks that come up and say, I had to have 20 trees taken out and I don't have $40,000. And that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. So we're constantly fighting for that. We're constantly fighting for that funding to help the counties and municipalities take care of that problem. But that problem, we don't know if it's over yet. We have to take a look at what's going to happen this spring, which is coming. The temperature and the moisture levels that we're going to experience are going to determine whether or not we're going to be having this problem in summer, where we have the bark beetle infestation. The trees are not able to fend off their attack. So, I've taken enough of my time. That's it. I'll tell you next week what I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, and Mike, that was a good summary of what's going on in tree mortality, so we'll skip over that. I attended the Light of Hope event, which I know this board's familiar with since I came and did a presentation, and it was for Child Abuse Prevention Month, and it was really a moving event. I really advise, if you guys get a chance next year, to get up and see how these people are finding hope and moving forward. It was powerful, and I really appreciate all the staff that made that happen. A lot of different departments are working with families that are having a hard time in our county, and it was nice to, we often get all the bad stuff coming at us. It was nice to see that we have some successes too, and we're solving and helping our community. So please, if you get a chance, do that next year. Calaveras, I went to the district attorney's homicide memorial down at the Victim Services, which was a different kind of event. Very sad what people are going through, but I'm happy that our county is working to provide comfort and paths for these families and through Victim Services. And then, like the rest of you, I attended the Sally Tuttle, Shirley Hubbard dedication up at the library. Now that is a feel-good. Our library is fabulous. Our community of volunteers keep that thing running through good times and bad times, and Sally and Shirley were certainly the leaders oftentimes of the volunteer work, and it was just really neat to see their families and to be part of that community. And I agree with Clyde, the lunch was quite tasty. So thanks to Pickle Patch on that. That's my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Supervisor Mills.
Thank you. We had two very important meetings, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Basin Authority Board meeting. I asked the clerk, and she has forwarded to you this presentation, because I think the entire board needs to be up to speed on what the effects are and what our timelines are to get the GSP, the plan, in place by January of 2020, and what that really means to the county, not just CCWD, because we are going to be a role player here in terms of how this is accomplished. Also attended a meeting with Mountain Counties up in Placerville. The discussion was on something called has the state gone too far? And this was a water rights attorney, and also John Mills, who is in the water business, has been there for literally decades, discussing how the state's water decisions are impacting the counties, particularly SBX 77, which is the governor's order of 20% reduction by 2020 in domestic water use, as well as EOB 3716, which provides permanent prohibitions on specific water use, for instance, in hotels, that you can't wash dirty towels on the second go-around kind of thing. But where they really feel that there's a concern is the State Water Board is starting to step into land use issues and telling local purveyors that you cannot water lawns, you cannot put in gardens, your use of water has to be very restricted. And so there was an express concern on the part of the water agencies that the state might be trying too hard here to step into areas that they are really not sure. So we're kind of in an uncertain territory. So I asked that information also be forwarded to the rest of the board so that you have that as well, and kind of take a look at what their thoughts are, because there's going to be a conflict. And the conflict is going to come from where do we get the water for SGMA, which is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and the Delta and the Valley, and where does the twin tunnels fit into this, and how, if we start taking water out of the Sacramento, the Cosumnes, et cetera, and transferring it south, how is that going to affect the Delta? So the Bay Delta plan is going to be a direct conflict with the twin tunnels and a conflict with SGMA. The water is a finite amount. Where are we going to get it all from to meet all of these requirements? So the result is the phase 4 of the Bay Delta plan, which has to do with setting some flow objectives for the primary tributaries on the Sacramento, has been thrown out. So there's only 3 phases, and that third phase should be the most concerning, because that's where the state is going to review water rights. Even some pre-14 we call prescriptive rights, not consumptive rights. And that is us right there on the Stanislaus. So this is our economy. Water is the economic engine and the survivability of this county. And I think it's critical that we as the board understand what role we can play in assisting our water agencies to ensure that viability goes forward in the future. Much more to be said, but I just wanted to get as summary as possible.
Thank you, Supervisor Mills. Supervisor Oliveira, you had one.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Chair. I failed to mention that we've set up a town hall meeting in the Arnold area for May 1st from 6 to 8, and we're going to be discussing the planned development of the Highway 4 corridor, specifically in the Arnold area, and I wanted the public to get a little advance notice. I did advise CAO Lutz of this. Press release went out yesterday, so it's an opportunity for the folks to understand what planned development is, and if it's broken, we're going to try to fix it. If it's not broken, then we may need to get rid of it. This is an information gathering town hall put on under the supervisor's hat I wear up there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I attended the Mountain Valley EMS board meeting on the Wednesday of last week. It was very interesting. We have our contract ending, and they do the purveyors of the ambulance service here in Calaveras County with the exclusion of Ebbets Pass, and that contract will be coming to an end in 2 years. And so you start opening those negotiations up coming up within the next couple months, because they're a long period of time you go through negotiations for that. So that's happening coming up. I was also attended and was actually the MC for a car show for Valley Springs Boosters. I've been a booster for many, many, many years, and the boosters, the name of the car show was the Valley Springs Boosters Saved the Fireworks Over Hogan Car Show. And it was very, very successful. That was Saturday. We had over 260 cars there. And it was packed. It took up the driving range across from Lock Antenna on Highway 26. And it was an all-day event. I think I got home about 6 o'clock, 6:30 that evening after we cleaned up everything. But it was very, very successful. It was great. We were initially we were going to have 175. But they showed up in force, and we ended up with, like, again, 260, and it was a very successful show. We will have fireworks over Hogan this year, and the date is June 23rd, I believe. It's the Saturday before the 4th. So it is June 23rd. Don't forget it, mark it down. It's a big event in this end, west end of the county. Also, I want to bring up that this coming Thursday, since Supervisor already brought up a town hall meeting, he's going to be conducting Supervisor Clapp and myself this Thursday at the Jenny Lynn Veterans Memorial District Hall. Will host a town hall meeting that will start at 6 p.m. on Thursday the 19th. And that's all I have. CAO Lutz, you have anything? Megan? Board Clerk.
I do. I'd like to announce that on May 8th, we will be having the annual Government Center Employee Frog Jump and Barbecue. Last year, we had 83 entries, which was a record. We have never had that many entries for Frog Jump, and we raised quite a bit of money for the Humane Society and Friends of Animal Services. If you would like to enter a frog, please contact me. And let's see if we can get more entries than we had last year.
Can I enter Zoe again? Thank you.
I'm just going to pile on here. We should all, Zoe can pay her $10 and contribute too, and that's fine. If anybody's got a hamster or a frog that they want to enter, we're all right. It's about raising money and bringing awareness to our local community projects. And thanks to Spirit Committee for putting it together. So I encourage all my fellow supervisors. See you on the 8th.
All right. That being said, we are adjourned.